CAIR was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something.
Oh, assalamu alaikum, infidels. Welcome to NeoUnrealist. Ilhan Omar, everyone's favorite congresswoman representing Eastern Hennepin County, or as some might call it, the People's Republic of Minneapolis, has put her foot in her mouth yet again this week. Now, contrary to what some people think, while her district does have a large population of Somali Muslims, I mean, the largest such population outside of Somalia, I believe, those demographics are not what play the dominant role in getting her elected to Congress. You see, the 5th District of Minnesota is a D plus 26 voting district in the Cook Partisan Voting Index. Now, there hasn't been a Republican representing that district for over 56 years, since before 1963. And, the Democrat candidate, he can often count on, or she, often count on getting as much as 70% or more of the votes in that district. And that was happening long before there were Somalis there. So it is by far the most Democratic-leaning district in the entire state of Minnesota. In fact, the most Democrat-leaning district in the entire upper Midwest. So let us not chalk up this woman's presence in Congress being a mere fact of the presence of a large Somali community voting for her and overwhelmingly there. Now, the district in the end, it's still 2/3 white. It's just 16% black. So, no, while I'm sure having the reliable votes of her fellow Somali refugees is a factor in the DFL primary there, the fact is any Democrat candidate can pretty much count on getting elected there. Ilhan Omar, she won the district in the 2018 midterm, something like 78% to 21% over her Republican opponent. I don't even remember the name of the opponent. That's how, much of a lock that thing was. She won by, look, 56 points. Come on. So, perhaps, then, it should be no mystery while Ilhan Omar, she feels basically invulnerable, that she can do and say things that most other Democrat members of Congress wouldn't even dream of saying, even if they actually believed them. So let's focus, though, on this latest public relations disaster. I mean, could you imagine Nancy Pelosi having to deal with this woman every week? She's been there, 3 months, and she's having to answer for, these, especially the 3 freshmen backbenchers. I mean, she must be getting tired of this already. But anyway, Ilhan Omar, speaking in front of the Los Angeles chapter of the Council on American-Islamic Relations, popularly known as CAIR, Ilhan Omar stated, and incorrectly I might add, she stated, quote, CAIR was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something, and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties. So 9/11, it wasn't the worst attack in the history of the United States. No, it was just something some people did. Random people, we don't know who they were, why they did it, we don't know what. It just reminds me of that speech that President Roosevelt gave to Congress after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the infamous infamy speech. Instead of saying December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. Now, silly guy, what he should have said was, hey, December 7th, 1941, a date when some people did something. That would have been a more economic use of words, obviously. Holy crap, this woman has no clue. No deep and abiding love for the United States if she could so callously dismiss the worst atrocity ever inflicted on a nation by an alien source, as some people did, some people did something. And then move on to weave a tale of Muslim victimhood in the United States. Oh my God. But a lot has already been made of this topic. I think I owe you, the viewers of this channel, a lot more than just, going on to bash Ilhan Omar's anodyne word choice. I really think there's a bigger issue. An 800-pound gorilla that's not being talked about in this. I mean, she's getting away with something far more sinister and disgusting, grotesque, than dismissing and downplaying the 9/11 attack. I already mentioned it previously, but maybe, I guess you could be forgiven for missing the greater of the offenses here. is the fact that a sitting member of Congress was even speaking at a CAIR event at all. How is that not major news? A few days after the 9/11 attack, President George Bush, in his infinite wisdom and to his everlasting shame, held an event where he said Islam is peace, the famous Islam is peace event, an ill-advised propaganda effort to absolve Islam of any criticism or examination of its worst aspects. Well, standing there right next to him, one of the good folks standing with me, as Bush called him, was one Ilhan Omar, the chief executive officer of the Council on American-Islamic Relations. You see, contrary to Ilhan Omar's claim that CAIR was founded in the wake of 9/11 due to, some loss of civil rights in the wake of the event, no, CAIR had been around a long time by then. What Bush and his people did not know at the time was that Ilhan Omar and CAIR were not some harmless advocacy group, the Islamic equivalent of, say, the Anti-Defamation League. No. In the flurry of anti-terror investigations that began after 9/11, the FBI would soon discover the true origins and purpose of CAIR and Mr. Awad. You see, Ilhan Omar, the leader of CAIR, he was born in the Al-Wadat Palestinian refugee camp in the Hayal Auda neighborhood of Amman, Jordan. Now, Al-Wadat, it's the second largest of the 10 officially recognized Palestinian refugee camps in Jordan, with a registered population of 57,000 refugees. Now, it's not all Palestinians these days. I believe there's a large Gypsy population there. Now, understand, they're not the Palestinians there. They're not really refugees. Most of these people, about 37,000 of the people there, they're Palestinians. So, in a sense, the Iraqis who fled the Iraq War, the Gypsies, those people are refugees. But the Palestinians who live there, this so-called camp, as they call it, was set up in 1955. Probably before most of you watching this were born. The Palestinians there haven't lived in tents since the end of the 1960s. I mean, these days, they got 3- and 4-story buildings in that place, in the quote-unquote camp. And, there's over 2,000 shops and businesses there. It's just a neighborhood of Amman. Entire generations of Palestinians have been born, lived, and died in Jordan, and they can expect to continue doing so for generations to come. But in spite of this, the fact that the Al-Wadat camp, which is infamous for its culture of Palestinian activism and militancy, Ilhan Omar came to the U.S. in the 1990s to study, I guess, ostensibly to study civil engineering. Not that he's actually done any engineering since he got here, but he studied civil engineering at the University of Minnesota. Now, shortly after the first Gulf War, remember that happened way back in 1991, he became the public relations director for an organization called the Islamic Association of Palestine, the IAP for short. Now, let there be no mistake about what the Islamic Association of Palestine was. This now defunct organization, I should add, as it was shut down by the U.S. government, but we'll get to that. The Islamic Association of Palestine, the organization he worked for as the public relations director, was founded in 1981, and it claimed to be a non-profit for advocacy of the Palestinian cause. Now, the IAP, they had relations with the Holy Land Foundation that I'm going to get into. I should say more than relations, but they were one of several organizations that were set up to be front organizations in the U.S. for the terrorist group Hamas. Now, this is beyond question. It's been proven in court. I'll get to that as well. The man behind the establishment of the Islamic Association of Palestine, its primary funder and member of its board of directors, was a guy named Musa Mohammed Abu Marzouk. Now, I can go deep into the background of Musa Mohammed Abu Marzouk because he's a big name in the Middle East politics. He's the founder of the Islamic Association for Palestine, and back then he was also in the U.S. So again, another one of these famous students. I mean, all these people, they came as students, but they didn't actually do the thing that they were to study. These people are all basically here as activists. But anyway, I could tell you how he was born in the Rafah refugee camp out in the Gaza Strip, and how he later became considered to be the savior of Hamas when he used his connections in the U.S. and Europe to raise money for the nascent terror group when the group got rocked by mass arrests early on in their existence, back in 1989. But suffice it to say, all you need to know about this guy who was the founder of the Islamic Association of Palestine that Nihad Awaz was working for is to know that in 1992, he was elected the first political bureau chief of Hamas, and since 1997 has held the title and role of deputy chairman of Hamas. Yes, deputy chairman of Hamas. Now, in 1995, Marzouk was listed by the United States Treasury Department as a specially designated terrorist, and today sits on that list that's since been renamed the Specially Designated National List. So in 2002, a federal grand jury in Dallas returned an indictment against Marzouk for conspiracy to violate U.S. laws that prohibit dealing in terrorist funds. You got to remember, Marzouk, in 2002, he's been, for 5 years at that point, he's the deputy chairman of Hamas, the number 2 slot. Marzouk conspired with 5 employees of the Texas-based company Infocom Corporation. And these were 5 brothers who ran a web hosting service in Richardson, Texas. Marzouk gave them $250,000, $250,000, and they were just supposed to give him the money back based on the company's profits. Basically, it was a money laundering scheme to hide the terror cash. And you had the offices of the Holy Land Foundation were located in basically the same spot as the Infocom, and they were also hosting the websites for the Holy Land Foundation and the Islamic Association for Palestine. So in 2004, Maryland police, in an unrelated thing, they detained a guy who they spotted in a car with his wife, using a video camera to take video of the cables and upper supports of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. Now, pursuant to a search warrant, they found in the guy's vehicle and in his home, this Ishmael al-Barase, they found bank records belonging to, guess who? Musa Muhammad Abu Marzouk. Now, remember, he had by that time in 2004, he's over there in the Middle East. He's helping run Hamas. So this caused they found these bank records, and it basically gave the U.S. government evidence to indict Marzouk in absentia, for coordinating and financing Hamas's fundraising in the United States. So that's the founder of the Islamic Association for Palestine that Nihad Awaz was the public relations head for. But of course, remember, like I said, this guy Marzouk had to be indicted in absentia, unless you have any doubt who this guy is. He was in the Middle East by then and unreachable by us because he was serving as Hamas's deputy chairman, one of the most senior members of Hamas leadership. So back to Nihad Awad, the current CEO, the current head leader of the Council of American-Islamic Relations. This is the group that Nihad Awad, he was the public relations director for, like I said, the Islamic Association for Palestine. The financial hub for Hamas in the United States, founded and led by the man who currently sits today in 2019 as the deputy chairman of Hamas, second only to Ismail Haniyeh, the chairman himself of Hamas, and I guess arguably you could argue Khaled Mashal, who basically holds the same rank. He's also this 2 deputy chairman, but nevertheless, he's either the number 2 or the number 3 man in Hamas. So if, say, Haniyeh or Mashal ever get taken out by the IDF, the guy who'd in effect be in charge of Hamas was Nihad Awaz's boss at the Islamic Association for Palestine here in the U.S. This guy would be the next leader of Hamas if those 2 guys were taken out. So lest there be any doubt in your mind that Nihad Awaz was somehow some unwitting dupe who had no idea that Hamas was involved and that somehow he was not a supporter of Hamas. Because remember, this guy he's working for, he's like the number 2 or number 3 guy at Hamas now. Yeah. Oh, gee, I wonder, who is this guy I'm working for? Why is he in the Middle East? Oh, he's heading Hamas. Anyway, in 1994, at a speech in Barry University near Miami, Florida, the current leader of CAIR, Nihad Awaz, said, and I quote, "I am in support of the Hamas movement more than the PLO. In November of that same year, Nihad Awaz appeared on 60 Minutes and was interviewed by Mike Wallace, who asked him what he thought of the, quote, military undertakings of Hamas. We got to remember, this is back when Hamas was really active. There was no Israeli border wall keeping them out of Israel. So this is 4 weeks after Hamas had taken responsibility for a suicide bombing on a bus that killed 23 Israeli civilians. Now, Awad answered, hey, the United Nations Charter grants people who are under occupation to defend themselves against illegal occupation. So the man who Nihad Awaz founded CAIR with, I mean, he knew what he was doing. You know, the fellow Islamic Association for Palestine member and former president of that organization, he was caught by the FBI on a wiretap in 1993, professing his commitment to Hamas. This is the guy that founded CAIR with Nihad Awaz. We'll get into this now. Quote, on the FBI wiretap, another member, Ahmed, said we, the IAP, can't as an American organization say we represent Sama. Now note, Sama was the name Hamas said backwards to avoid surveillance by intelligence agencies. I believe back then it was also known as keyloggers, or no, because I remember reading back in the 1990s in the book The Puzzle Palace about the NSA. Anyway, he continued, quote, can we go to the congressman and tell him, I am Omar Ahmad, chairman of the Islamic Association of Palestine. Yasser Arafat doesn't represent me, but Ahmed Yassin does. Ahmed Yassin refers to the founder of Hamas and its then leader, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, since killed in an IDF airstrike on his car. So here's this guy, the co-founder, the guy who went to Nihad Awaz and said, we've got to found CAIR. Here's this guy talking on the phone, professing his support of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. In 1993, the year before CAIR was founded, the future founding members of CAIR, they attended a meeting in Philadelphia. Now, this infamous meeting, since dubbed by the FBI counterterrorism people as, amazingly enough, the 1993 Philadelphia meeting, where the FBI documents senior leadership of Hamas, the Holy Land Foundation, and the Islamic Association of Palestine meeting. At that meeting was Omar Ahmad, the guy that I was talking about just now on the phone, with the FBI wiretap, professing his support of Hamas and its leader Sheikh Yassin, as well as the founder of the Texas chapter of CAIR, Ghassan Elashi, also an officer with the Holy Land Foundation, that Ghassan Elashi, and the founder of CAIR, Nihad Awaz. So what are these three men, these founders of CAIR, doing sitting in a room with Hamas? Well, the FBI, wiretapped the meeting. And according to their action memorandum, on the wiretap, the overall goal of the meeting was to develop a strategy to defeat the Israeli-Palestinian peace accord and to continue and improve Hamas fundraising and political activity in the United States. The participants decided that for fundraising purposes, the United States theater was very valuable to them. They stated they could not afford to lose it. In the United States, they could raise funds, propagate political goals, affect public opinion, and influence decision-making in the U.S. government. It was mentioned that the United States provided them with a secure legal base from which to operate. The democratic environment in the United States allowed them to perform activities that are extremely important to their cause. In discussing financial matters, the participants stated a belief that continuation of the Holy War was inevitable. It was decided that most or almost all of the funds collected in the future should be directed to enhance the Islamic resistance movement, aka Hamas, and to weaken the self-rule government. Holy war efforts, let me repeat that, holy war efforts should be supported by increasing spending on the injured, the prisoners and their families, and the martyrs and their families. Also discussed at that meeting, Nihad Awad and Omar Ahmad discussed the need to create a new, quote, neutral entity, their word, for influencing U.S. policy and opinion to support Hamas because, quote, it was known who we are. So you're starting to get it? They were saying at that meeting, this is Nihad Awaz and his buddy over there, Omar Ahmad. They're saying that the Islamic Association for Palestine was too connected with Hamas. I mean, for crying out loud, the name is, Islamic Association for Palestine. No doubt what they're all about. So they had to form a new organization that was, neutral, not obviously connected to the Palestinian cause, to influence U.S. politics and society for Hamas. Boom! These men, the ones sitting in that infamous meeting with Hamas in Philadelphia in 1993, talking about the need to form that neutral organization, would go on in the next several months in the wake of the meeting, where they discussed raising funds to support the, quote, holy war, and forming that new, quote, neutral entity to advocate for Hamas's goals that, because their organization was already, their cover was blown as connected to Hamas. They would go on to found CAIR, the Council on American-Islamic Relations, just a few months later. Omar Ahmad, former president of the Islamic Association of Palestine, was at that meeting with Hamas. Nihad Awad, former public relations director of the Islamic Association of Palestine, now president of what he termed would be that, quote, neutral entity, CAIR. CAIR Texas chapter founding member, Yassin Ilashi, also the Holy Land Foundation officer. He was at that meeting with Hamas. And all of these men that I mentioned were not just employees of the Islamic Association of Palestine, the Holy Land Foundation, working directly for the man who now sits as the deputy chairman of Hamas, Musa Mohammed Abu Marzouk. Remember, as they sat in that meeting in Philadelphia in 1993, Abu Marzouk had already been elected the first Hamas political bureau chief the year before, in 1992. So they were working for the group that was founded, directed, and funded by the then current sitting political bureau chief of Hamas. CAIR was established to get away from the stink of the Islamic Association for Palestine, whose name alone made it explicitly a Palestinian organization, which was very unpopular in American politics, especially in the 1990s. So they took the same people from the IAP and just created a new name and organization for them and rebranded as a generic Muslim civil rights group. It's a shell game. It's all the same people who started it, who were in the IAP. They knew what the IAP was all about. They were just all in it for Hamas and just part of the Muslim Brotherhood web of front organizations. And it started to come apart. Because of 9/11, the government just started investigating all these Islamic charity groups. And in December of 2001, with the Holy Land Foundation case, when the Holy Land Foundation was designated a terror organization, its assets were seized and the group was shut down. And the Islamic Association of Palestine, they were shut down in 2004, because remember, these are a lot of the same people involved with both groups anyway. So just like the Holy Land Foundation, which, mind you, was also founded by, the founder of it was the same guy, Hamas Deputy Chairman Musa Mohammed Abu Marzouk, and whose chairman was the CAIR Texas chapter founder, Hassan Ilashi, one of the guys at that meeting. And like I said, he founded the Texas chapter of CAIR. So by 2004, Abu Marzouk, the deputy chairman of Hamas, he was indicted in absentia in a 15-year conspiracy to fundraise money for Hamas, by the federal grand jury in Chicago. And it's funny how the same people pop up as founders, officers, chairmen, deputy chairmen, public relations directors, presidents in all these organizations. Musa Mohammed Abu Marzouk, Omar Ahmad, Hassan Ilashi, Nihad Awaz. I mean, isn't it so... what coincidences? The Islamic Association for Palestine, the Holy Land Foundation, the Council on American-Islamic Relations, the same guys in all three organizations. You start to get the big picture about the alphabet soup game. It's just meant to confuse donors and the authorities, when in the end it's just the same people with the same goals. In 2008, all the defendants in the Holy Land Foundation case, from the Holy Land Foundation, the Islamic Association of Palestine, they were all found guilty. So that leaves now CAIR, founded by officers with both the Islamic Association of Palestine and the Holy Land Foundation, both organizations that were shut down and found guilty of aiding and abetting international Islamic terrorism, started at the direction of and with seed capital of the political chief of Hamas and current deputy chairman of Hamas, Abu Marzouk. Two groups who in a 1991 internal memorandum of the Muslim Brotherhood described their purpose as engaged in a civilization jihadist process. Now listen to how the Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood, describes the work of groups like the Islamic Association for Palestine, the parent group of CAIR, remember, staffed by the former members of the Islamic Association for Palestine. The Ikhwan, that's the Muslim Brotherhood, that's their name in Arabic, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. How much more do you need to know? In 2008, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, they severed all contact with CAIR outside of investigative work. So if it wasn't a criminal investigation or civil rights investigation, special agents could not communicate with members of CAIR anymore without obtaining permission from their superiors. Remember, the president of CAIR, Nihad Awaz, the guy that was standing next to President Bush in 2001 after 9/11 as one of the good ones, so to speak, for his Islamist peace photo op, he had met with the FBI director, Robert Mueller. He'd even sat on a government aviation safety panel, for Christ's sakes. Now in 2008, employees of the FBI were forbidden to speak with him or anyone else from CAIR. And lest you think that this was just some artifact of the Bush administration, that prohibition was in effect for the entire 8 years of the Obama administration and is still in effect today in year 3 of the Trump administration in 2019. So outside of an investigation where they're either a subject, a person of interest, or a potential witness, no agent of the FBI, no one in the Department of Justice may communicate with a member of CAIR. They can't even attend an event where CAIR is expected to be an official participant. FBI special agents have testified in court under oath on multiple occasions that CAIR is a front group for radical organizations operating in the United States. The Inspector General of President Obama's own Justice Department under Eric Holder investigated compliance with the ban on contact with CAIR and upheld and reiterated the ban in 2013 in a review of FBI interactions with the Council of American-Islamic Relations, stating that the purpose of the ban was to ensure that the FBI is not supporting individuals who support extremist or terrorist ideologies. So from 2009 to 2011, the FBI, remember this was Obama's FBI, issued several guidance memos on Muslim outreach and the FBI relationship with CAIR. Obama's FBI Office of Public Affairs deemed CAIR not an appropriate partner for liaison activities. Remember, as Obama's Office of the Inspector General points out, the FBI discovered that at least 2 national leaders of CAIR, Nihad Awad, the president, and another person who came from the Islamic Association, I believe that was that Hassan guy, for the Holy Land Foundation, they were linked to Hamas, the designated terrorist organization. They were at that 1993 meeting. It was felt that it was necessary to not let CAIR, exploit contact with the FBI to lend themselves credibility and legitimacy, so they had to avoid even being in photographs with members of CAIR. I mean, this stuff is taken very seriously. It's a mandatory requirement, to avoid unauthorized contact with CAIR if you're a special agent of the FBI. So how is it proper for a sitting member of Congress to speak at an event hosted by an organization that FBI agents have been forbidden to speak to outside of criminal investigations for the past 11 years? How is it acceptable for Ilhan Omar to speak to an organization whose president participated in a meeting recorded by the FBI where he formulated a scheme to influence the U.S. government for the benefit of a foreign terror organization by forming the very organization that he heads today? How is it acceptable for Ilhan Omar to speak to an organization whose founders started the organization with that express purpose of being the front group for the cause of Hamas in the United States? Forget what she said about some people doing something on 9/11 and listen to her remarks in context. Ilhan Omar was out of line just being there in the first place. She has to explain why she was at an event hosted by CAIR, a known affiliate and unindicted conspirator in terrorist activities with Hamas, who it's not even allowed for federal law enforcement officers to be seen with these people, let alone speak to them. That's all for this NeoUnrealist. Like the video, comment, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to keep up with the new content. If you want to go above and beyond that, toss some of your hard-earned dollars at the channel, you can follow the links below to Patreon if you're one of the diehards still there, PayPal for a more direct route, or the new Subscribe Star option for the refugees that landed, they found asylum there. But BitChute viewers, you naturally have the option of using the green tip / pledge button beneath that video player. This is a really long one today, guys, and I've got to say, if you're still watching at this point, I salute you.